Big Ten Tournament Championship, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, CBS, Michigan, Wisconsin. The Wolverines were not supposed to be here at the beginning of the week. The Wisconsin Badgers technically not supposed to be here because they had to go through Michigan State. But ask anybody who has watched this conference for the last 3 months, and everyone, including Tom Izzo, by the way, would agree Wisconsin has an argument for being the best team in this league. What they've done this year has been nothing short of spectacular. They have a superstar in John Tonji, who, in the words of Jace Richardson, you were my pick for player of the year. That's what he said in the handshake line here. So there's a lot of love being spread to the Badgers, rightfully so. These two teams met once in the regular season. It was very early in the season. Michigan went into the Kohl Center and beat Wisconsin by 3 points on December 3rd. Are you excited for this matchup? Where does this matchup, Michigan Wisconsin, rank in terms of excitement for you as a non-Big Ten viewer, Ralph?
It's probably like a 7 or 8 on a scale of 10. Right, like Michigan State, Michigan, I think would have brought the juice and put it as a 10. But this Wisconsin team is really, really good, and getting to see John Tonji on this kind of stage is going to be a lot of fun. He was not overly dominant in that first game against Michigan. It was the first game where he was kind of like, or started the stretch where he had kind of come down after that incredibly hot start to the season, and that was on an incredibly hot close to the season. It'll be interesting to see how Michigan tries to defend him. And it'll be interesting to see, too, how Michigan tries to handle, or Wisconsin tries to handle Michigan's front court. Excuse me. Because the only reason Michigan won that game was because of Vlad and Danny. That was the only reason. Those two were dominant. Everybody else was kind of nah.
Yeah. Yeah, this was before all of the Michigan role players had fallen off a cliff. But you wouldn't know that by looking back at the box score because Trey Donaldson had an awful game, 0 for 7 from the floor, 0 points in 31 minutes. Namari Burnett hit a couple threes. Roddy Gale actually did some little things, 6 boards, 5 assists in that game. I remember him being okay in that game.
Four turnovers, though, in
Yeah, it
that
was
game.
gross there. Nothing from the bench as usual for Michigan. So you're right. It really was. It was only the eighth game of the season, and you got to remember if you're doing a time machine here, nobody really knew how good either of those two teams were yet. I think at the
Right.
time, Wisconsin was like 29th in KenPom. They were still shaking off the preseason rust where nobody thought this team was going to be good.
Right.
And Michigan had shown a flash of quality play because they had just blown out Xavier the game before this, but they also had that Wake Forest loss in the second game of the year. So it was one of those games. I think nobody at the time knew that these two teams were like going to finish in the top five in the Big Ten. And looking back on it, it's been a result that I have felt as a Michigan fan, Ralph, that people have just kind of forgotten about. Like it's
Yes.
not easy to go into the Kohl Center and do what Michigan did. Obviously, Wisconsin got better as the year went on, but that was Vlad and Danny's coming out party. We hadn't seen Vlad and
Yeah.
Danny together as a duo play like that until they saw Nolan Winter and Stephen Crowell and Greg Gard and said, y'all can't hang with us. Vlad Golden had 24 points on 16 shots. Danny Wolf had 27 and 5 assists with 5 blocks and 3 steals. And I remember the biggest takeaway for me in that game was not even what Danny did offensively. He was the KenPom MVP. It was what he did defensively to John Tonji in the second half
Mhm.
because they changed the assignment late. Wisconsin went small instead of trying to go too big. They were trying to stretch out the two bigs late, and they put Tonji at the four. Danny Wolf was the matchup, and Tanji consistently tried to ball screen him, tried to isolate him in the final 5, 6 minutes of this game, and really just got nowhere. That was the biggest change down the stretch. You have done a bunch of film study on Danny Wolf defensively this year. You have your thoughts on where he's good and where he's not. How do you expect Michigan will try and contain Tanji in this game?
Because it worked so well the first time, they're going to try it again. Or at least they'd be foolish not to try it again. Maybe they save it for big spots, that kind of thing. They'd be foolish not to try it again. I don't think they'll have the same success because my only criticism of Danny Wolf is that he is not good on the perimeter defensively. He just doesn't have the foot speed, and we see it time and time again. Now, John Tonji isn't exactly the most fleet of foot guy either. He's not super quick. He should be able to, I think, get more against Wolf than he did the first matchup. but I do think it's certainly worth trying considering how good it went for Michigan in the first matchup. We'll see. The counter then is okay. I think the more interesting side of this too is Wisconsin going to try and go small again? Because it didn't work the first time. I think if you're coming at it without that knowledge, I think it's still a decent strategy to try. Are you going to try it again, or are you just going to roll big and let the chips fall where they may? I'm interested to see how Greg Gard approaches that.
Yeah, it's going to be a big spot for Guard, who I think has been either the best or second best coach in the league. It's hard to say he isn't. It's hard to say Izzo isn't the best, given they don't have a
Right.
first or second team guy and they won the league by 3 games. But the fact that Izzo is still like effusively praising how good Wisconsin is like a pretty clear indication that Guard has done just as good of a job. Um, the interesting thing with Wisconsin for me is this. So I completely agree with anyone who implies that this Wisconsin team is dangerous and a top two team in this league. I think if they played Michigan State 10 times, each would win five. That's how good I think they are. I think Michigan State maps better to a 20 game sample size, which they proved that already. But like
Mhm.
the caliber wise, Wisconsin and Michigan State are in the same tier and nobody else is.
Yeah.
Um, the interesting thing for me is what I think what makes them difficult for other teams, I don't really think is that difficult for Michigan. And
Right.
I think what Michigan is good at is actually something that's really hard for Wisconsin to contain. Because I watched this Wisconsin team, the number one thing I feel like I have seen them struggle with at times is just size,
Yeah.
positional size. Like you think back to Wisconsin's game against Illinois, the first one. Now, that was when Illinois was confident and playing well, but Illinois was just bigger than them at every spot and kind of got to them. We saw Wisconsin in the rematch, the second game, completely right that ship and blow Illinois out. So maybe they could do that to Michigan. But going back to that first matchup, Crowell was basically a ghost, 2 points and 4 rebounds in 22 minutes. And
Hmm.
my interpretation of that, watching that, was that he just isn't good enough to deal with Vlad Golden. Vlad's bigger, Vlad's stronger. What is Steven Crowell going to do?
Yeah.
And when you're Wisconsin, you want to play two bigs. You want to play Steven Crowell, and you want to play Nolan Winter next to him, and you want to play John Tonji at the three and be big. But if you put Nolan Winter at the four, respectfully, that's food for Danny Wolf. And that's why Wisconsin in the first game tried to go small. But to what you just said, if you go small, like it's not even like Tanji is not a quick guy. So
Right.
the thing that Wolf struggles with is kind of gone. When you watch Tanji, like the number one thing he's great at is bully ball and getting to the rim and using his size. And that's kind of just negated against Wolf. I think that's why Wolf had success against him in the first meeting. So again,
Absolutely.
Wisconsin's a better team than Michigan. Guard's been stellar. I expect Guard to make adjustments that I don't see coming. But if there aren't those, if it just is the same our guys versus yours from the first game, like I love this matchup for Michigan. Do you think I'm crazy in that?
No, you're not. I think the only way Wisconsin wins this game is if John Blackwell and or Kamari McGee have great games. Because I think that's where you could potentially gain an edge. Because both of those guys have shown some incredible flashes this season. Blackwell in particular. If those two guys can use their quickness, get in the paint, outplay Michigan's backcourt or outplay Michigan's role players, that's an area Wisconsin can capitalize on. I don't know if they're going to do that, but to me, that is the probably most likely opening you can take advantage of, other than Tanji going for 30 plus again.
Which also could happen, right? But
Right.
like I so in recent preview and recaps, I've been saying I'm all the way in on the bandwagon of the Wisconsin team that has Tanji and Blackwell basically just playing like superstars. Like I don't even want to necessarily respectfully to the role players that shoot and are great 3 point spacers. I need Tanji going for 30 a night. I need Blackwell going for 20 a night. If they do
Yeah.
that, I think this team can be Final Four good. If they don't do that, I don't love what else is here. And I think they got that in this tournament thus far, right? They've won three straight to
Yeah.
get here. They didn't have the double bye against Michigan State. Tanji 32. He was the baddest MFer on the court. Nobody could do anything. Blackwell had 14. That was enough. Against UCLA, Tanji 26, Blackwell 18. Check, please. Done. Against Northwestern, they weren't great, and Northwestern was in that game at times. So to me, that is the recipe if you're Wisconsin. Superstar's got a superstar. And
Yes.
I, the Tanji one is interesting because if I were Wisconsin, I think I would try and play too big. Get Tanji matched up with Roddy Gale. Get him matched up with Namari Burnett with
Yeah.
Reuben Jones. That's his path to 30 in this game for me, more so than trying to go small.
I think so too. It would not surprise me if guard spent the first 12 to 16 minutes of this game toying with both and seeing what works. And then that's the adjustment for the second half is okay. This one worked better. This is what we're rocking with for the rest of the game. That to me is how I'd approach it if I was guard because there are pluses and minuses to both. And if they're shutting Tanji down, then maybe you need to feature Blackwell more in the second.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a nice little chess match, I think, between Dusty and Guard because Dusty has also shown this against in other rematches he's played this year. It's usually a completely different game plan. Like he surprised Painter with like a completely different, we're gonna throw zone at you for 30 minutes. Against Michigan State, they switched up coverages. It didn't work necessarily because Trey Holloman was screaming like a psychopath. But barring like Blackwell turning into that guy in this game, I think this will be a very interesting, like composed, your move, my move between Guard and Dusty May. On that note, which coach do you trust more?
I trust Dusty May more. I think Greg Gard does not get enough credit for how good of a coach he is, but I think it's also fair to point out, like tournament success is not something that he has experienced, and I think it's because of late game situations. Like Gard is an excellent like kind of game planner and schemer. May I think is really really good in a game, and in situations like this where you have 24 hours or less to prepare, I think that the ability to kind of make some tweaks on the fly matters a lot. I'd lean Dusty, but I mean, both these teams are here for a reason. Their coaches are phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me either way if one of these two pulls like a magic trick and surprises the other, but should be a high level thing on both sides. Uh, on the flip side, players. I assume we agree John Tonji's the best player in this game.
Yes.
Who are 2 and 3?
Probably Golden and Wolf.
I'm gonna say I think it's Vlad and Danny, and then you probably go Blackwell fourth.
Yes. But if Blackwell gets into that top three, Wisconsin wins.
Night. Yeah, I agree. Overall roster, which one's better?
I think Michigan's.
I don't hate that if the guards play well. It would have
I'll,
felt
I'll do
crazy
the
to
I'll
say
do the
that like a
cop
week
out.
ago.
I'll do the cop out. Michigan's got more upside. I think Wisconsin's floor is higher.
That's probably the right way to call this. If these teams played 10 times on a neutral court, what's the split in terms of wins?
I'm gonna go Michigan 6-4.
I'm going to say it feels coin flippy to me.
Yeah.
And I do, as a Michigan fan, thing that scares me most is just Wisconsin getting their get back here. Like we just saw Wisconsin kind of get up to get one more chance at Michigan State.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. We haven't forgotten the Kohl Center. I could see that happening. But again, there's just, man, I told myself I wouldn't talk myself into this Michigan team, Ralph, I swear. But here's where I'm at with it. This week has broken exactly how it needed to for Michigan. I can list all the various things. Getting Purdue in the first game. You get a team with no depth that plays all their stars 42 minutes in a 40-minute game that ran out of legs, and it was a get-right game for Michigan. Then in game 2, you get a Maryland team with zero depth. That's a win for Michigan. And Kevin Willard's their coach. That helped. Then in game 3, you get Wisconsin, who you've already beaten. But along the way, Ralph, you avoided the two teams that you know you can't touch. Like if Michigan had played Illinois, they're not winning that game. They can't beat Illinois. So there's voodoo with that program. If they had gotten Michigan State in this championship game, I know there's a Michigan State fan out there watching this. I mean this genuinely. We could play you 100 times. We won't beat you. I am genuinely so excited I don't have to play Michigan State in this game.
Yeah.
And I think the players are too. So, like, it has just broken the perfect way for me to flip from, like, there's no way I'm out on this to, like, well, wait a second. We're 40 minutes away from hanging a banner. It's a team we already beat. And when I look at all the profiles, Michigan is good in all of their advantage areas. Like, The number one thing that scares me is just Michigan going crazy and turning it over like they did against Maryland, right? 19
Yep.
turnovers, but Wisconsin doesn't force them, right? That's not what they
Yeah.
do.
It's going to, like, if that happens, it's just loose with the ball. Like, it
Right.
would be unforced errors. This matchup is, I think, as good of a matchup as you could expect or want for Michigan getting to the title game.
Michigan turned it over 12 times at the Kohl Center. If you turn it over 12 times on a neutral against this Wisconsin team, I think you win the game.
I think so too.
But who knows what will, I can't believe where I've come in 3 days, Ralph. Like I literally genuinely lie detector me believe this team's not winning a game again. It doesn't matter who they play. And now here I am, like, I think they're gonna win the Big Ten tournament title.
The other side of this, too. Do you remember what Wisconsin did last year?
What's that?
This.
Oh, won the title. Yeah, you're right.
Well, they made the title game. They beat Purdue.
Made the title. Illinois won
They
it.
beat Purdue in the semifinals,
Yeah.
and everyone was like, "Oh, okay." And then they played well against Illinois, but lost that game by 6 and went on to lose the first round of the NCAA tournament to James Madison.
You're right.
But it wouldn't shock me. I don't know about the NCAA tournament. It wouldn't shock me if they got to this point and then lost a game again close based off matchups.
I will say I love everyone on Michigan State telling Wisconsin how great they are. I hope Greg Gard is listening to Tom Izzo say how great he's been. I hope John Tanji is replaying Jace Richardson telling him he's the player of the year. Like, thank you for that favor. Save the Big Ten. I love it. I just love it. I don't like Ralph. Everything's breaking my way. What do you want from me? I'm terrified. Should we get to predictions?
Let's get to predictions. I think Michigan State may have been gassing them up to try and beat Michigan.
Really?
Maybe.
I don't think Michigan State thought Michigan was going to beat Maryland, to be honest with you, but here we are. Ken Pom has Wisconsin by 4. Your thoughts?
I think you hit on the nail on the head. I think Wisconsin is probably the better team. Michigan has a better matchup in this game. So I would go Michigan, and I think it'll be close. I'm gonna go Michigan by like 5 or 6.
This is 100% a reverse jinx, but Wisconsin is truthfully, definitively the better basketball team. They have the best player in the game. I'm going to pick that team and that player.
You sound
But
like
I would love to be wrong. Like, if they let me be wrong, Ralph, if all the teams that told me that Michigan was just lucky, that my team's really like the 9th best team in this league, but we're just fortunate to be tied for second. If all of those teams underperform again and let my lucky ass team luck their way to a Big Ten tournament title after telling me how lucky I was to even get the 3 seed in the Big Ten, if that happens, Ralph, the Big Ten is saved, my friend, officially. And that is what's on the line. That's the stakes. Like everybody else, if you're a Purdue fan, Illinois fan, Michigan State should be with me, honestly. But Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Indiana, Maryland, name them. You should all be rooting for Wisconsin in this game. Because if you let me get this one, I'm putting a banner right there, Ralph.
if you get this one, it just means you're lucky.
So lucky, so insanely lucky. I'm just excited to watch this game from the labor and delivery unit tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. Thank you to Brian Ralph for previewing this. We'll have a recap up at some point once this ends.
What better way to welcome a child into the world than with the Michigan Big Ten title?
Come here, son. Come here. You're a Big Ten champion, son. It's great to see you. All right, we'll have a recap tomorrow. Enjoy this game, everybody. Thanks for watching this week.